I'm going to bring Board of Supervisors Finance Committee meeting Tuesday, December 15th, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. Chatham Community Center, 115 South Main Street, Chatham, Virginia. And I appreciate we are online live with Facebook. Just want to welcome anyone who's watching. You'll get the roll call, please.
Mr. Scares?
Here.
Dr. Miller? Mr. Davis? Mr. Ingram?
Here. All right. We have one item to add to the agenda. It's a financial impact funding source, new business, Bell Vanville SLC design construction contract addendum to approve for approval, and that will go on 5G. And
You just need a motion to add that.
can I get a motion to add that, please?
Make that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll go ahead and just do everyone who is approving, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We have no opposed. We'll go on to approval of agenda, please. Can I get a motion for approval of agenda? Mr. Ingram and Mr. Davis seconds. That's, I guess we'll go ahead with the roll. Just go ahead and spell it out. Aye for all those in approval. Aye.
Aye.
Any who would disapprove? It doesn't appear so. So we'll move on. Okay. Since we have no one really in the public, I'm going to forego reading this statement on what this committee is designed for and go on to news business. Item 5A, 640 EMS agreement. Mr. Smitherman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Scares. Thank you very much. We have been in conversation with the 640 Rescue Squad Board of Directors for several months about advancing a quick response vehicle and paramedic staff or EMT staff to the 640 area. We have negotiated an agreement that is going to be put forth before you today. Mr. Hunt has finalized that as of yesterday. Generally, the agreement is for, because 640 is unable to run calls anymore, they are providing sufficient funding to the county to provide one county employee 13 hours a day, 7 days a week, to provide first responder coverage in a county supplied quick response vehicle. This is a 30-month agreement. 640 will be deeding over the facility to the county, which will house our employees. We will be hiring, I believe, 2 staff to cover down there. This is a minimum commitment of the county until June 30, 2023. Mr. Slemp is here. He's been involved with the logistical details of this matter and can answer any questions you have, as well as Mr. Hunt or myself. Thank you. And what we're looking for, Mr. Chairman, is the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to approve this agreement, which will begin service January 1, 2021.
So we will need a motion.
We will.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hey, Mr. Smith, just about all the highlights of it. They've given us the money. We would provide staffing down there from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. or scheduled 7 p.m. 7 days a week. We also offered up to any of the folks who were remaining down there who wanted to volunteer for the service. They can volunteer for us, and they would be welcome to run this on the days or nights that we don't have anybody there. We'll take them under our EMS license, provide training for them, put them in our system so they can do reports. Basically, we can just follow them right in on us. So I think it's the call volume down there doesn't necessarily warrant 3 or 4 calls a week down in that area down there. This seems to be the best of all worlds for us as far as being able to provide service that's lacking now that they've closed and provide stopgap for the short term.
Do we have any questions from committee members? Other board members?
No, sir.
All right, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Ingram gives us a motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davis. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? We have none. Next on the item is solid waste capital plan and reimbursement resolution. Ms. Vanderhoek.
Yes, I'm going to pass out the presentation, but it will be on the screen for you to see as well, and that way you can take it home and kind of look it over. It's nothing as far as financing that you all will have to decide on tonight.
Thank you.
all of that with you. So we are very fortunate to have PFM as our financial advisors, and they have so graciously put these slides together for us this afternoon. We met with them late last week to explain some of the needs for landfill that's coming up for the next 5 years. So as we get started, some of the things that we told them was that our project expenditures are looking to be about $12 million, which are subject to change. We got these cost estimates from Richard. This includes 3 compactor sites. It includes all of the landfill equipment that has previously been discussed with you all, as well as the opening of a couple of sales. So we'll go over that in greater detail as we go on. We did mention to them the fact that we are taking trash from outside sources that has not been previously budgeted before. So this is what we would consider revenue that we don't need, that is outside of our operations. So it's possible monies that we can use toward this capital. We also have about $1 million that we had left at the end of the year that we could start with as a balance of monies that hadn't already been pre-budgeted or pre-obligated in any kind of way. This year will be the last year that we have monies that we will have to pay on a VRA loan that we had in the past. So that debt is actually going to drop off. So as we go to this first slide, some of this I'm going over already. One of the things that they assumed is that we would want to have about $1 million of fund balance each year, so we're not taking all of our money. And as we're using that money as a fund balance, we would be growing our fund balance to the fact that some of the things that this $12 million that is needed, we'll be able to pay as we go instead of borrowing the money. So we'll be setting aside $250,000 as well on sale closures. We wouldn't be borrowing those monies as well. The next slide talks about our project expenditures and the things that we know that are coming up that are large and outside of our operational budget. And they include the rebuilt compactor, the rebuilt bulldozer, 3 convenience centers to a tune of $2.9 million on those 3 sites. Design engineering for Cell C is $175,000. Construction of Cell C is $3.1. And then you've got phase 3 site investigations, $110. Phase 3 Part D application, $102,000. DEQ review of $30,000. And then Cell 3 cell design and construction of a tune about $4.2 million. But as you can tell in that middle column there, we went over the useful life of some of this equipment because you wouldn't want to borrow money that you're paying on that's far in excess of what your useful life is on the equipment. So that's where those years came from to kind of determine how long we want to pay on debt. Then those pay-go projects are the things they think that we would be able to save enough money that we would be able to pay as we went. So they're far enough out that we would have monies that we wouldn't necessarily have to borrow. So a lot of that deals with our phase 3 construction of that cell and the DEQ review and such. So if you move on, so that's $12 million. That's how they came up with the expense. The pro forma that they did for us was for the next 5 years, from 21 through 25. And you can see that we started with a fund balance of $1 million, and then we've got revenues that haven't been previously budgeted of Bays, First Piedmont, our landfill capital, which is the monies that we're going to save, capital money we put in every year from the general fund of $300,000, and then our budgeted debt service savings. So our pay-go projects of $387,000, so there are things that we will pay for and not borrow. We would contribute $250,000 toward closure, and our annual expense is just the total of those 2 items, the $387 and the $250. So our net annual revenue just out of these revenues and expenditures is $830,000. And you can see how that progresses through. So as you can tell, First Piedmont that will start in January of '21. And then, of course, it'll double for '22 through '25. And everything else, we've kind of kept it status quo, but certainly those things could change. So these are all estimates. And as you can tell, on those later years where we've saved money, we'll actually have the monies to actually pay for that cell construction without borrowing the funds. If we go on to the next slide. So basically, you know, what I've gone over is the fact that we can use a mix of debt and pay-go throughout this process. And what PFM would be recommending to us is to utilize the financing that Caterpillar has offered to us if they are actually the bid winners. What we found out is that we can actually borrow funds for that equipment, especially the compactor that we wanted to get pretty soon, like in January. We can actually borrow those monies at a 0% interest rate for the first year. We did find out that we can prepay that. We don't have to wait the full year to pay them back. It's a $250 prepayment penalty, so we would only have to pay $250 in order to utilize that money. So they would recommend that we would use that, get the equipment that we need. With our reimbursement resolution that you all would be passing tonight, it would allow us to pay ourselves back. And they are recommending that we go through the spring pool or the summer pool for the Virginia Resources Authority. They have the best deal going on right now for landfills and water authorities and that kind of thing. Their interest rate, the effective interest rate is 1.9% right now. And so we would pay, in essence, pay ourselves back for that money that we would borrow from Caterpillar. So it shows from the pro forma that we can grow our fund balance and pay for certain projects that we have with cash on hand. And with borrowing rates so low, they do recommend that we borrow money and utilize that money because it's almost free money as we are building our fund balance to do some of these later projects. Let's go. I think that's the last slide. It is. So do you have any questions that I can answer? If I don't know the answer, I can certainly defer to PFM for further guidance. They did send me different documents from VRA, like they did a pricing for us and how much that would cost us if we were to go through VRA. And we can do it at different periods of time. We could do 10 years, we could do 20 years, we could structure it however we would like to structure it.
Any questions from committee members?
Kim, I did have one question. Maybe Mr. Smitherman can answer this. This company here, how do they correlate with development?
None at all. We have PFM under a retainer annually to be our financial advisor. They solely work for us. They are our advisor when we seek debt. They help us with our budgets, with capital planning, so unaffiliated.
Gotcha. Okay. Second question is probably more than I was Hunt here. I know Mr. Joyce, I forget his first name. We contract with him, but so does First People. Is that a conflict?
No,
Okay. Why would it not be?
because he's advising on two different things. We have almost no police power over the landfill, and Butch Joyce advises us on our current landfill. Consultants work for many different clients.
Hope you can see why I asked that question.
Sure, but I don't know how it relates to what we're currently discussing.
Any questions from other board members?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. In actuality, I kind of see this as paying ourselves back. Isn't that
Correct.
correct? Okay.
And that's what we would be seeking tonight is reimbursement. And that resolution was written, Chris Culp, of course, we're doing this in tandem with PFM. They're doing their work, and our bond counsel is Chris Culp. We asked him to structure us a reimbursement resolution. So all he had to really go on was the list of the total expenditure. But we're only looking to borrow about $8 million instead of 12. So we can definitely move that figure down. It's just an arbitrary figure. You just want to make sure it covers yourself. But one thing that I will add, that Chris pointed out to me that I did not realize, is that when you pass your reimbursement resolution, the IRS will do a 60-day look-back period where they will look and see if you've had expenditures prior to the passing of your reimbursement resolution, you can still reimburse yourself for those things. It just cannot go outside of that 60-day window, only if you have expenditure for design work or survey. And I know we already have design that we've done on our convenience sites, so we will be able to reimburse ourselves for those items. They do not fall within that window of the 60 days.
Ms.
So
Smith?
the reimbursement resolution, if you all decided not to borrow money, it would just die. I mean, it's just a protection to make sure that we're covered if we do borrow money.
Yeah, so Mr. Scarce, the purpose of this pro forma is not necessarily to commit any of us to anything, except to show how we are thinking about utilizing our cash flow over the next 5 years. The issue this evening is the reimbursement resolution, so that if you do approve purchasing the landfill equipment in the next item, we have the option, as Mr. Davis said, of refunding ourselves at the appropriate time. So we're seeking action to recommend to the board that the reimbursement resolution be approved.
Any other questions from anyone?
I got a few.
Okay.
What is our current fund balance at the landfill?
At the end of June, we had a balance of roughly 3.8 million.
What's the rate of return on that $3.8 million we're getting now?
Our interest rate is not very good. It's in with the rest of our money. So we don't have that money segregated. Of course, we leave all of the investment up to the treasurer, and he does invest a lot of that money. But typically the monies that we have in our landfill account and our service authority account, which is very brand new, there are monies that are invested for PCSA because they already had that in place. But this is the first time our landfills really had any money. So I'm not sure what the rate of interest is right now, but I would say it's not very good.
Well, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer to take the 0% for a year, but I'm, before I want to borrow any money, long-term at 1.9%, I want to make sure it makes good, sound financial decision to do so. It doesn't make sense to me if we got money that's earning 0.6% to pay 1.9, I mean, sometimes that does work out, but you've got to have a reason for doing it.
Yeah, the consideration is going to be the speed that you want to go. If we want to build these convenience centers, we're going to have to borrow money because we can't cash flow those. It's totally going to be up to you to make that decision.
Right, and I'm okay with all of that. I'm just saying, I don't want to borrow $12 million if we start, when we get to the point we want to go with the big purchases. If we got $8 million laying here, I don't want to borrow 12. Sure. I might want to borrow 6, I might want to borrow 8. I want it to make sense, good financial sense. To me, it's a no-brainer to do what we're talking about doing right now, tonight. But I just think I want to be good stewards. I was real pleased to see, Mr. Chairman, that in one of the recent updates, private updates, they did a graph on our debt and where we stand right now from a debt standpoint, and we're really declining at a rapid rate. And I mean, that's putting us in a much better financial position. And I certainly hope we can get on the level where we can be putting more than $1 million a year in our general fund to get it back to a much more sustainable level to be really solid.
Okay.
If there are no more questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Davis, second by Mr. Ingram. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Let's move on.
Mr. Chairman, before we advance, I received a comment from a staff member that's participating online right now. And if we could, remember to turn our microphones off when we are not speaking. They're picking up a lot of ambient noise online.
Okay, we'll move on to item D, personnel changes, GIS manager, assistant county administrator position authorization and reclassification, and EMT classification.
Well, we need to roll back one, Mr. Scares. We skipped over the actual authorization to bid and purchase.
I'm sorry, I missed,
Item 5C.
oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself, sorry. Landfill equipment bid authorization and purchase, thank you for pointing that out.
Mr. Hicks is unable to be with us today, and Public Works Director Chris Adcock is going to be presenting this item.
We submitted at the last month meeting, we submitted the proposal from Caterpillar for the rebuilt landfill compactor, and we intend to issue an RFP with bids to be due January the 5th. So we would want you to give authorization to the county administrator to issue that purchase order once the low bids come in on the compactor.
All right, any questions from committee members? Other board members? All right, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Ingram gives us a motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davis. Go ahead and all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, unanimous vote. Let's move on. Now we can get to item D, I think.
I'll be happy to kick that one off, Mr. Chairman. Two items that we're asking you to recommend approval on this evening. The first is the establishment of two positions that are presently not in our classification system. They are GIS manager and assistant county administrator. There are job descriptions attached to your packet. These positions will replace two vacant positions in our personnel system. Right now, the two vacant positions and budgeted positions are recreation program manager and community engagement coordinator at the pet center. There is no new expense, or 100% of these funds are contained in the FY20 budget, so there is no net increase in personnel cost as a result of these changes. The second change, or the result of these two additions, the second change is a reclassification of our emergency medical technicians. They are currently on a 40-hour per week work schedule, which is not only cumbersome for our finance and management staff at public safety, but also very cumbersome for our employees because they get very disparate checks twice a month. They get a very high check, they get a very low check. We're going to put them on a 27-day work week, a public safety schedule, and reclassify them as, what is the title? Fire and EMS. Fire and EMS. It's a public safety work schedule, 24-hour shifts, and it doesn't lend well to a 40-hour week. We've mentioned this before. We probably even mentioned it close to a year ago when we got started down this road, and we've come to the place where we realize that we made a mistake in our initial classification, and we would like to classify them as fire and EMS employees. So the two recommendations are to authorize the two positions as well as the reclassification of EMTs.
Do you have any questions from committee members? Other board members? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
You have a motion by Mr. Davis, second by Mr. Ingram. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It's a unanimous decision. Let's move on to item E. Danville Save and Crew Tower Agreement. Mr. Slemp.
we have worked out. Sorry, we've been working on this one up until the weekend. Get it, trying to
Thank you.
as you know, we committed some money from CARES to place get down the lifesaving crew into our system, radio system in the county. They have signed a contract with Harris to move forward with this. They right now we had a kickoff meeting I attended. They had a kickoff meeting a couple weeks ago down at Danville Lifesaving Crew. Harris is in the process right now of doing a doing some just tower study and writing or finishing what they call the design work, final design work. They want to have that done by mid-January, and then they will start to order the remainder of the equipment that either hangs on the tower or goes in the radio room, such as repeaters and antennas and so forth. Danville Lifesaving Crew has already ordered and received some of the portable radios and mobile radios. I've told them, you know, those will work on our system, and since they already answer calls in our southern part of the county, they should go ahead and program those up and be using those. It would help give their members more radios and from a safety standpoint, and give us better communication with them overall. So they're starting that. Their biggest concern is Harris doesn't know what COVID could do with any shutdowns of factories or being able to get parts. They're trying their quickest to get this thing up and running by summertime, but their main concern is if COVID shuts them down, you know, all it takes is one or two engineers to get sick or quarantined, and it shuts the whole project down. Or you could have the Harris factory, for that matter, have a problem and you can't get parts. So that is their main concern, is being able to complete it by summertime, because there's some unknowns with COVID, obviously. I think those are legitimate concerns. But other than that, they're moving forward. They've signed their contract and moving on with this thing.
Any questions from committee members? From board members?
I do have one. Mr. Hunt, I'm assuming, since we haven't had time to really go through this in detail in here today, you're comfortable with all this, the county's protected?
Yeah.
I did notice in here that the Danville Lifesavers Crew is committing to have everything up by June 30th, 2020. And,
Yeah, we think that's gonna be the sticking point for them with COVID, and so, they haven't really gotten back to us on this agreement yet. We're just providing an update. We anticipate, that date may have to change, or we may have to insert a clause that allows for them to come back to us and ask for extension if indeed they have COVID supply issues. And so I guess it would be appropriate for this board right now to discuss what is your comfort level with an outside date for them to have this equipment hanging on the tower. Because as you remember, they're using our money to buy the radios, and their commitment is to hang the equipment on the tower to make everything operational. Mr. Slemp, you're hearing that this June date might be a little ambitious?
Yes, that's the concern, is they just don't know what could hit them or slow them down because of COVID, and that's not necessarily in their control. But they are moving. I mean, having sat in that meeting with them the other day, I know the engineers are moving as fast as they can. We stressed that to them, that we wanted this up by summertime and up and running. But I also understand the other side of that coin is you don't know from day to day right now with some stuff.
Mr. Ingram?
Of course, I was sad, like many of us in this room, that the city refused to participate.
Yes, sir.
What if they had a change of heart? Would that alter this contract?
If the city had a change of heart,
Yeah. And they decide to support this.
I mean, I don't think it shouldn't hinder the work that still needs to be done to that tower.
Sure.
I don't think that part, I don't think it'd play a huge part on that. I'd love it if we got to, city didn't want to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not comfortable in giving them 30. I'm comfortable with saying if there's supporting documentation of an increase in COVID, that we would entertain extending it 90 days.
Okay.
But there's gotta be
Right.
different than, I mean, it's gotta, you know, it's gotta be substantiated. I mean, this thing's dragging on long enough. We made our commitment from the get-go. Why are we gonna keep on, Gotta be a stopping point.
All right, so the approval would be conditioned on inclusion of a clause that states that we expect it to be up by this date. It could be extended up to 90 days with providing adequate documentation that evidences the COVID-related delay issues.
Right.
We can do that.
All right.
And of course, it always depends on board approval
Sure.
for the extension.
All righty, any other concerns? If none, we'll move on to item F, life pack.
We need to vote on
Do
a
we-
recommendation to the full board. And if you,
I thought okay, I didn't realize we were gonna vote on it. All right, well, I'll take a motion. Mr. Ingram,
yes, sir.
Second.
second by Mr. Davis. All those in favor say aye. 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 All those opposed? We'll go on to item F.
Like a Episcopal church service, you stand there.
Oh, no. So we had some CARES money still we were able to, or want to use toward the purchase of 3 more of the LifePak 15 cardiac monitor defibrillators. One of those will go to on the 640 QRV that we're getting, and one will go on Blair's QRV, and the other one will go on a Ringo QRV. And then they can upgrade those units to ALS vehicles. These are the same as we've been purchasing for other agencies, and they not only monitor, they do 12 leads, so you can diagnose someone having an MI, and they do defibrillation, and they also can work in a manual mode, so even an EMT can use them. You don't have to have a paramedic there, and they're consistent with everything else we have, and they use the same supplies that we were already purchasing. The cost of that was just a little over $100,000. It was $104,000 was the cost on that. Those things are about $35,000 a piece. They're not cheap by any means. But we wanted to use the CARES money to purchase 3 more of those units.
Any questions or comments from committee members? Any board member questions, concerns? All right, let's move on, and I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion on F.
Second. Mr. Davis with the motion and Dr. Miller with the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We have none. All right, let's move on to item G.
And for the chairman's benefit, because he was a few minutes late, we added this, and you have a handout beside you, right there, yes.
So this item with the, beginning January the 1st, with the additional contract from First Piedmont to accept the Martinsville-Henry County trash, Labella is expecting our useful capacity of cells A and B to be used up by the end of 2022. So we need to move ahead with the design and construction of cell C in phase 2. So this is, we would request that you make a recommendation to the full board at tonight's meeting that we execute the attached addendum with Labella to do the construction bid documents and the contract administration and the construction quality assurance, which basically is like inspection and an overview of the construction project in the amount of $161,500.
All right, any questions from committee members? Other board members? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna make the motion to send this to the commissioner. But however, I want to make this motion, if it's so plausible, to direct the commission to come up with a replacement schedule and policy.
Is that clear?
Something's wrong.
I mean, he's on 6A, and I think.
I'm
we're
on
5G.
6A, I do apologize. I'd already looked, okay. So which,
On 5G.
5G, okay, that was right.
We're on the
Which is-
stand-up.
Which is
I
now.
apologize. Mr. Chairman.
That's all right.
But this one over here on the other one,
Here,
took a little more.
there's the motion,
you want me to read the motion?
if you want.
I make a motion recommending the full board at the December board's business meeting to authorize the county administrator to execute the attached addendum to LaBella's existing contract for the design and construction quality assistance of the project in the amount of $161,500.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Davis and a second by Mr. Ingram. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we can move.
Chairman, can I ask a question about that?
Sure, you may.
Mr. Adcock, you mentioned that 2022, I was under the assumption that taking the outside still left us about 3.5 to 4.5 years. The number at 2022 doesn't say that. I mean, is that, I just want to be clear on that. Are we really think it's going to be 2022?
Well, I think that they are, anticipating on the fast side, just so that we don't get,
And getting started in 2022 to be prepared, is that what
well,
we're saying?
what they're expecting, their timeline for this contract is that we begin construction in the middle of next year, 2021, on the Cell C, so that it's ready for trash at the end of, or at the beginning of 2022.
Also, again, we are slightly hamstringed because of Mr. Hicks not being here due to possible COVID exposure. But what we have learned, everything Chris said is absolutely right. However, we would have normally permitted a larger portion of the next cell, but the state's telling us it takes 5 years right now to review a permit for a new cell. Luckily, the area we're working right now, I can't say it was pre-permitted, but we're well into 20% into, on the permitting side, that next 5 acres. So we are going at a different increment than we thought we would 6 months ago because of DEQ's permitting review cycle.
But we're going to still have area within our existing sales for 3.5 to 4.5.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to clear up for the public, because that's not what we.
Yeah, no.
Like
so
Chris said, we're being very conservative
We have
on this.
A, B, and C. We're working in A and B now. So with the addition of C, A and B will be anticipated to be filled up by 2022, but with C being construction, C will give us that additional 3.5 to 4.5 years that you're talking about, and even further than
So
that.
we're still working our same footprint. We will not move to a new footprint, which is where we borrowed dirt from until the next
Yeah.
phase. of
Phase
the
3.
development.
I understand.
Yes, sir.
I just want to be sure that we articulate it so that our citizens understand,
Yes, sir.
okay?
Any other concerns, questions? All right, let's go with item 6, staff reports, fire and rescue capital equipment inventory. Mr. Slemp?
Sir, I'm going to give y'all a little better copy than the one that's in the package. I call it this morning, it didn't look, it's a little more confusing to read.
Well, is that gonna change any of my vote right there?
No, no. I just want to give it so it's easier to read as long as Chris. And Mr. Davis had brought it up about 4 months ago to get an inventory, which we've worked on, and it's a whole lot to digest. I'll try to answer any questions you may have. As you can tell, some of what we have is, we have some old pieces that are concerning to me that we're still running. And we also have, some of the agencies do a really good job of keeping inventory, can tell you some of the things they have on hand, some can't, as far as like turnout gear and stuff, which, that stuff they own, those are their resource or assets.
Toward the end of this, our county is in there, what we own and what are our county assets as well. But we're also, and maybe to address something you were getting ready, I think, to bring up, Mr. Davis, was in the November commission meeting. The commission sent it back down to the Fire Rescue Association that they wanted formal written equipment standards that everybody would abide by in the future. And they have to report back to the commission by mid to late spring. I think they want it back by April, May timeframe of written apparatus standards. You know, what we're going to, an engine's going to have this, a tanker's going to have this, an ambulance is going to have this, and also to standardize our turnout gear, standardize our SCBA's. So we're going in the right direction with that, and they're seeing the need. The commission is that, you know, we've got to get a grip on and handle on what we have out there. And, you know, we have some agencies that call a tanker something that carries 500 gallons. Well, that's not a tanker. You know, to me, a tanker is something bringing 1,500, 2,000 gallons of water to you. So, you know, they want to, in fact, at the last association meeting, they were talking about an agency wanting a brush truck, and they were looking at the, you know, potential stuff that people might want in the future. And somebody even brought it up and said, wait a minute, we don't think this would actually meet the standard for a brush truck. And before I could tell them they had to do that, they said, we need to start adopting standards. So they're pushing that too, to get us going down the right road. But we do have, in my opinion, in some places, too much equipment. We have some agencies that couldn't staff everything in their building if they, you know. Then we have some that can, and we have some that do have legitimate needs. But we have some that could probably cut some equipment out, and I don't think we'd miss it. Yeah. I mean, we have some that have 1980 model trucks that just, we shouldn't be running those. That's just, in this day and age, they don't really meet standards.
Do you have any questions from any committee members or board members?
I just need some more information.
Yes, sir.
There are certain agents I've learned that dealing with this Franklin County issue, that a fire truck, pumper, a tanker, whatever you call it, the ambulance, they have very different lifespans that are acceptable to keep your insurance, fire insurance rate and all the rates. Is that correct?
Yes and no. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly, thank you.
Well, then I'll tell you why. If you have an older engine, let's say you have an engine that's 20 years old, as long as it's passing pump test, then it's okay. It's when it doesn't pass pump test. That's why I say that. As long as it's passing those pump tests and so forth.
So it never ages out if it'll pass the pump test?
It's my understanding that, yes, that is correct. It shouldn't.
Okay, we take pumper off the tape. How about the others?
Well, ISO doesn't really have some requirements for the age of certain things. They look at more of what's on a piece of equipment. So take out the pumper as an example. You might have an equipment vehicle that hauls air packs and turnout gear and forcible entry tools and so forth. They don't always look at the age of that. It's more what's on there and does it get out to the call. Ladder trucks, you know, they have to pass a certification test on ladders and so forth. So yes, that there is some things in about age, but as long as you're passing tests, you're usually in good shape with ISO.
But there is some stuff in there about age.
Yes, sir. There is, yes, sir. You got to dig down the weeds, but yes, sir.
Okay. How about ambulances?
No, sir. There's anything in there other than when you go to if I want to remount, like take a box from this truck and put it on another chassis, that's when you could have some issues if the box is aged out and there's new standards on the box. But other than that, no, sir. There's no.
You said box aged out, and you said there's no age.
What I'm saying is, it depends on when
I'm trying to
standards.
understand.
Right. It depends on when standards change in EMS. So an older box, you might have to go through a whole bunch of reconditioning on the box. It doesn't make it cost effective to transfer the box from one chassis to another chassis. That's when you run it. But don't, sir, there's no age limit on ambulances as far as that goes.
Any other questions, concerns? There's no action item on this,
Yes.
or is there?
The vote, I made the vote a little bit earlier. This is the way I would like to put the vote, though. That's the, I don't see that on there, is to send this to the commission and direct them to come up with a replacement schedule and a policy. And by the way, if I may say something in a statement, I had the opportunity last night to attend the commission meeting first time. And I know Mr. Ingram, Supervisor Ingram's been to many, and so I know he knows, he's had more experience, and I want to thank the commission people, those that are on there doing an outstanding job of oversight, and I think that's an added advantage to the county to kind of help our volunteer departments, you know, kind of, I'm just glad we have that in place, because they're like a big brother, you know. I mean, I didn't see that till last night, and I'm glad we have them. They're very critical, and I didn't realize the role they play. So enough said on that. But I think from the questions I heard asked and received and complimented on last night were very in depth from these gentlemen, and I was amazed at the intellectual capacity that's spread on that board. And I think that they can. And one of the reasons I would go along with this as well is because I think they have the wisdom and the oversight to come up with a good these schedules as well as policies. You see, and that's why I made that comment, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, thank you very kindly.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Davis, second by Mr. Ingram. Now, I guess any other comments before we move to a vote? Since I've been leaving that part out, haven't I, Mr. Chairman? Anyway, I appreciate Mr. Davis's comments because I do serve on the fire and rescue, even though I missed last night's meeting, unfortunately, and I appreciate everything those guys are doing too. They've taken a lot of their time to do a great job, I think, for the county. I think it's a great thing for all the fire and rescue departments out there. So I appreciate those comments,
Well,
Mr.
I do
Davis.
apologize, Mr. Chairman, for not recognizing you that you were on that committee.
I was not there last night.
I saw that.
We do have a great commission.
I know you did.
We've got
I was
great people on it.
I enjoyed it.
All right, all those in favor say aye, please. Aye. All those opposed? We have none. It's unanimous, and we can move on to matters from committee members. Mr. Davis.
No, I'm through.
Mr. Ingram.
No, sir, I'm good.
Dr. Miller. All right, we're gonna go into closed session. Can I get a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Just so for everybody's edification, Mr. Chairman, I'll just read what we're going to closed session about because we have some people listening at home. Discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignments, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees or employees of any public body. Legal authority, Virginia Code Section 2.23711A1, subject matter county registrar's office and other election officials, temporary workers, purpose, hazard pay, discussion.
All right, I believe we had a motion by Mr. Ingram, and I'm gonna go with Dr. Miller on the second. I think he got in first.
I did believe that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we're
2:30. We will now certify closed session. Be it resolved that at the Finance Committee meeting of the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors on December 15th, 2020, it hereby certified by recorded vote that to the best of each committee member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorized the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. If any committee member believes that there was a departure from the requirements of the Act, he shall so state prior to the vote indicating the substance of the departure. The statement shall be recorded in the committee's meeting minutes. Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Ingram.
Yes.
Mr. Scarce.
yes. And with that, we are adjourned.